Hello, and welcome to the Sunday Short Story Podcast. I'm your host, Amanda Hayes, and with me today are Steve Hayes and Aubrey Adrianson. Today, I will retell the story of the Greek creation of man, and Steve and Aubrey will react to the story in ways that we've all either seen children react to or in ways we believe children would react to the story. The purpose of the show is to point out some problems in these kinds of stories and how they're not useful in teaching children morals or important life lessons while having a little immature fun at the same time. Today's story will be retold in part from a Greek mythology website, and you can find a link to that on the Godless Family website. According to Greek mythology, in the beginning there was nothing, and it was called chaos. From this nothingness came light, which was Mother Earth or Gaia, and sky or heaven, who was known as Uranus. Those were formed. From Gaia and Uranus came 6 twins known as the Titans. The 6 twin Titans were named Oceanus and Thetis. Oh man, I'm going to butcher these. Koios and Phoebe, Hyperion and Thea, Creaion and Themis, Iapetos and Clymene, and finally Kronos and Rhea. Gaia and Uranus also gave birth to 3 Cyclopes? Would you say that?
Cyclope?
What's that?
Cyclops.
Okay, gave birth to 3 Cyclops and 3 giants, each with 50 heads and 100 arms. And so, evidently Uranus did not like his children, so he forced them to go back into their mother's womb. And the pain of carrying all of the children made Gaia, the mother, very angry, so she wanted to get revenge against Uranus. So she called on the Titans to help her. The youngest, Kronos, came to her aid. And with his mother's help, Kronos created a sickle and one day just went and cut off his father's genitals. Then he took the genitals and cast them into the sea. And according to some versions of the myth, the goddess Aphrodite was created from the blood that dropped into the sea when Kronos threw his father's genitals. Other versions say that the foam coming off the sea was what created Aphrodite. So anyway, after defeating his father, Kronos married his sister, Rhea. Kronos and Rhea had 6 children: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, and Zeus. So after the birth of each of his children, Kronos swallowed them because he had heard a prophecy that claimed one of his children would one day overthrow him, and he was really worried about that. So every time that one of the kids were born, he would just take the kids and just swallow them whole. So the mother, his wife, Rhea, obviously was really angry and sad that she was losing all of her children because her husband was eating them. So one day when she was about to give birth to her 6th child, she decided to trick him. Instead of handing Kronos the child as soon as he was born, she gave him a rock wrapped up in a blanket. Kronos swallowed it, believing it was the baby. Rhea then smuggled the baby, who was Zeus, to the island of Crete to be raised by nymphs. And that is how the legend goes.
Wow. So, Uranus is a planet.
Yes, that's right. All of the planets except Earth were named after different gods and goddesses from both Greek and Roman mythology.
So, where did the name for Earth come from?
Oh, it's rather boring. It's just an English and German name for ground.
Well, that's not as cool.
Nope, definitely not.
Wait a second. Did you say that they had kids and Cyclopses and giants with 50 heads and 100 arms?
Yes, that's how the story goes.
So how does someone give birth to giants with 50 heads and arms? How do they even carry something like that in their belly?
Well, the stories would have you believe that since they were king and queen of the gods and they were there in the beginning, their powers had no limits, so they could birth whatever they wanted to.
Wow, you would have to have a huge belly to have so many arms and heads in there.
And think about it. Was it time for them to come out? Think about when it was time for them to come out. Ouch!
Not to mention, he cut off his own dad's genitals and threw him into the sea. That's horrible!
That is horrible. And it stopped him from being powerful. He couldn't just keep ruling with all of his parts?
Evidently, he could not. Cronus was able to take over that, so I guess cutting off those genitals just renders you powerless.
What? Another sister marrying a brother? Gross. Why are people in these stories always marrying their brothers and sisters?
Well, some would argue that back thousands and thousands of years ago, there were no moral issues with incest within families. They were gods, so they made up the rules about what was right and wrong. Sometimes it's also done to keep all of the power in the family and away from any outsiders. They didn't have the same rules and feelings about families that we do now.
That's still disgusting. I don't care about keeping the power in my family. These gods sound crazy.
Yeah, they do.
He ate his own babies?
Yep, most of the legends say he swallowed them whole.
All because he was told of a prophecy? That's cruel.
It is cruel by our standards, but the Greek gods weren't very moral or nice. They didn't value family like we do. It was more about power. So, what did we learn from this story?
Oh, power, power, power. Always power with these gods. They don't care about anything else.
They don't sound like very good gods to me.
Me either. It's true that the Greek gods cared very little for being moral or good. They mostly cared about themselves and their own power.
Might makes right.